Observer Research Foundation, in association with Westland, would like to welcome Ms. Rashmi Bansal. She is the author of 3 best-selling books, Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, Connect the Dots, and I Have a Dream. She is here today to talk about her latest book, Poor Little Rich Slum, with which she captures the apathy and the quality of life in Dharavi, which is entwined with the spirit of entrepreneurship and triumph, a place of great learning, paradoxes, depicted through Dee Gandhi's engaging photos and Rashmi and Deepak Gandhi's fast-paced writing. Rashmi is also the co-founder and editor of Jam magazine, which is India's leading youth magazine. Her books have sold over 500,000 copies and have been translated into 10 languages. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Rashmi will be joined in conversation by Mr. Govindraj Etiraj, who recently founded the India Spending and Policy Research Foundation. Prior to this, Govindraj completed a 1-year assignment working as the head of industry and outreach with UID, along with Nandan Nilekani and his team. Previously, he was associated with Bloomberg UTV as founder and editor-in-chief. He was also an integral part of CNBC's TV18 launch team and with other leading business magazines and newspapers. I would now like to call Ms. Rashmi Bansal to address us, and we look forward to her presentation. This will be followed by a conversation between Rashmi and Govindraj before we invite the audience for a Q&A. We request the audience to please keep their questions brief, and please speak into the mic because we're recording this for research purposes. Thank you.
Very good evening and warm welcome to all of you. I'm delighted to be here today at Observer Research Foundation to talk about my new book, Poor Little Rich Slum. And thank you, Govind, for sparing time to come here for this conversation. I think we'll start by having the conversation. I have a small film which I would like to show you at the end of the discussion that we have. And after that, we'll open it up for Q&A. So over to you, Govind.
Thanks, Rashmi, for making life difficult for me at the word right away. Okay, thank you so much. So I've known Rashmi. We've been journalists and are, I guess, to some extent still journalists. And we used to work for a short while. Our paths intersected at the Times of India group. I used to be with the Economic Times, and she used to work for a newspaper called The Independent. Which subsequently got dovetailed into, was it Bombay Times? Yeah, it subsequently became Bombay Times, but Independent was quite different from what Bombay Times is now. So, like I said, I've known Rashmi. So what I'll do is I think I'll ask you about a few questions about the books you've written and why you've written them and so on, and maybe a couple of tough questions on why Dharavi as well. So I think the first question is really, you've run Jam, which is really a youth magazine, and you've written a lot on entrepreneurship and contributed columns and so on. So when you wrote your first book, Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, so what made you do that, and how did you choose that particular subject, which in some ways seemed like a departure from what you were doing earlier?
Well, I began my writing career when I was in the second year of college at Sophia College. I just started freelancing for different newspapers and magazines. And I was pretty convinced I want to be a journalist. But since I came from a sort of a more scholarly background, my father was a scientist at TIFR, and most of my friends did engineering, medicine, and so on, I was expected to do something useful. So I went to study MBA at IIM Ahmedabad. But after that also, I still felt I want to be connected to journalism and writing. So I went back to the Times of India and took up a job for 2 years. And I became an entrepreneur because I wanted to, there was no youth magazine in the country, and I strongly felt there should be one. So that's why I became an entrepreneur. I didn't want to be a business person, but I felt that there was a need for this kind of platform for youth, and to create that, I had to be an entrepreneur. I couldn't go to the owner of Times of India and make him create it for me. And somewhere along the way, around 5 years ago, I got this opportunity to write a book, which turned into Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, but it actually started as a project for IIM Ahmedabad. They have a Center for Incubation, Innovation and Research, Entrepreneurship, CIIE. And Professor Rakesh Basant actually proposed to me that why don't we write a book which could motivate young MBAs to think about entrepreneurship as a career, because generally we used to make headlines only for, getting salary of 1 crore in New York, London, Goldman Sachs. So people had this impression that MBAs only take up high-paying jobs, whereas what was noticed at Institute was that a lot of our graduates do become entrepreneurs and no one talks about that. So that's how the book came. I think the book chose me rather than, I actually consciously deciding that, I would write the book. But somewhere it all came together because I'd been an entrepreneur, I'd been a writer, I'd gone through many of the struggles and problems entrepreneurs go through. So maybe I could write a book with a little more sensitivity or more insight than other people. And I just did it for fun.
So you wrote 2 more books after that, right? You wrote Connect the Dots and then I Have a Dream. So what was the progression like? I mean, what was the progression in your mind? What were you trying to build on and what was the next step?
The first book was actually never meant to be published as a book outside, sold outside. We were to actually just print 1,000 copies and distribute it at a conference of entrepreneurs at IIM Ahmedabad. But once it was distributed there, it was felt that, no, this might help few other people. So we printed 5,000 copies. And then suddenly when it came in the market, without any marketing distribution, or we didn't have a big publisher, it was almost a self-published book by IIM Ahmedabad and Eklavya Foundation, who is not a commercial publisher. I think just on word of mouth or on the sort of utility of the subject or the kind of inspiration it was providing to people, it just started selling. And we had this idea that in the book we gave the email IDs of each and every person listed as well as my own. So immediately the feedback started coming in from people about how it was helping them. People would write in saying, oh, this is, few people wrote in saying, I've left my job, after reading this book, I'm so inspired. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I never had the courage. Some people would say, look, I've already started a business, it's not been doing well. I've been looking for some direction. So every day I read a few pages and, it gives me inspiration to continue. So I felt that, a lot of people are actually getting benefited by this book. It's not just something that they read and forget. And then I thought that, there must be so many more people in our country of 1 billion, there must be so many other inspirational stories. One of the issues with the first book was that, I did focus more on people from IIM Ahmedabad. So some people said that, oh, is that the formula for success, You have to be an MBA graduate or you have to be from an elite school. So the second book, Connect the Dots, was exactly the opposite. I went looking for people who don't have a degree in business or even any kind of great formal education, just to say that, okay, this is one set of people, this is another set of people. And, if you can kind of read their stories and find something that inspires you, then, why not make it into a kind of a series? But it's really based more on the feedback and, the utility for readers.
So, and the third one, I Have a Dream?
So yeah, by then it became, every time...
It was a successful formula.
Well, I won't say it's a formula, but it's like this. I started feeling that, in a way, almost like, in the ancient times, we had Panchatantra tales, which were written to instruct the young princes about life. And today, and I've, since as the editor of JAM, and when I go to so many colleges, interact with students, and they are confused and directionless. They have much more than what we had when we were in college, but that doesn't give them any further clarity or further, sureness about what to do with their life. In fact, there are too many choices today, and that makes it even more difficult. So if you tell them things like, work hard, find your passion, dream, and be persistent, and love what you do, and these are just, they're meaningless words. Only when they read it as a story of another human being who's actually applied those principles in their life, they're able to understand and actually use it themselves or feel that emotional connect or inspiration to do it. So, yeah, the third book was, you can say it's a formula, but, once you have found something that is appealing to people, my idea was that now I can use this platform of readers who connect with what I do to, show them something new. And I have some idea that there is, a new kind of entrepreneur out there too, called the social entrepreneur. So I decided to focus on that. And initially, my publishers were not very happy or keen because they said, social entrepreneurs don't make a lot of money and they're not successful in conventional terms, so do you think this book will sell? So I said, if I meet people and their stories are really inspiring for me, then I believe that it will do the same for others. And so I went ahead and did the book on social entrepreneurs, which was I Have a Dream.
Okay, so let's talk about the book that we are talking about today. So, so where did the trigger for this come? I mean, obviously it's a slightly different world. And it doesn't, it's geographic. I mean, it's not a community of entrepreneurs or, social entrepreneurs or I am entrepreneurs or whatever it is. So this is geographic, this is limited to Bombay city. How did you come across this theme?
Well, again, to be honest, this idea was not mine. My co-author Deepak Gandhi came up with this thought or idea that let's do a book on Dharavi. He had a background of, he had worked with social sector, he'd worked with UNDP, he had visited various slums across the world in the course of his work, and he strongly felt that there's something different about Dharavi and that it's not been projected in the media or to the public in a very readable manner. I mean, there are a lot of books and reports which do come out on various social issues, social problems, and places like Dharavi. So when we first met the, principal of Nirmala Niketan College, she said, there are too many books on Dharavi, and why do you want to write one more? I said, there are a lot of books, but I don't think many people have read them. And I don't know whether they capture the, the side that we would like to capture, which is to focus on this, some of the positive aspects, the fact that this is a great entrepreneurial hub, I don't think anyone's focused on that, so let's do it, and that's how the whole project began.
So what were did you have any fears before you wrote this? I mean, did you feel that you will find the people you want? Did you feel that you will be able to convey their stories as well as you did earlier? Because, I mean, you've obviously come off 3 successful books, and this is a different, maybe risky project, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little unsure whether any book will come out of this whole thing because we spent 9 months going to Dharavi day in and day out. I think you remember also many times, I think I mentioned to you, I'm in Dharavi. And we didn't know where to start looking, what to do. I mean, I'd never been there before, even though I've lived in Bombay all my life and I've passed by from the outside so many times. So we didn't have some starting point that, okay, we can go to this person or that person. And on the one hand, yeah, I mean, the problems of Dharavi are quite stark and visible, and, sometimes you get overwhelmed by it, The fact that I felt a little shameful. I mean, that I actually have never thought about how people live like this. There are people from such places who work for me as my driver or my maid or whatever, but I've never been to their homes and I've never understood their problems. I've never paid attention to it. Just near my home in Kolaba, there is Geeta Nagar, and we had a lady called Lakshmi who worked for us for 25 years, but I never went to her house. And, I felt a little, I did feel a little emotionally disturbed by the whole thing, Every time you go to Dharavi, then you go back to your house, and you have all the comforts there, and people don't have it in Dharavi. But the fact is, people are very, I think those who work in social sector know this, that people who live in such places are really wonderful human beings, and they're very welcoming, they're very warm, they're very open, you go there and you can sit there for 3 hours and they'll talk to you. But the thing is, what do you do with all the material? Like, we collected so much material, we've met so many people. So then deciding what to pick and choose and use was also a challenge.
So that's actually my next question. So you've got an interesting tapestry of people, I mean, or subjects in your book, right? It's not all entrepreneurs. Only some of them are entrepreneurs. There's a teacher, there's a gym instructor. You've got a couple of entrepreneurs as well, but there's a ladies' tailor, there's a shoemaker. So how did you arrive at this? I mean, how did you lay it out? What were you trying to put together?
So the book, we have basically, if you see the subtitle is, what we saw in Dharavi and why it matters. So we are not trying to give a formula for how it can be, we're not trying to give any prescription or give any kind of, we're just trying to take you on the journey that we undertook over 9 months, but in the form of a book of 200 pages. And also, to do that, we also use photographs to give you a visual journey through that, space. And I think we wanted to bring out all the aspects of Dharavi. Of course, there are issues also, there are problems also, but again, to do it in a manner which my readers, who are really the youth of India, would relate to. You know, I mean, most of my readers will not be reading books on such a subject. So for me, it was a risk also, and you know, there would be people who maybe would not get what they expect from me. But I didn't feel that we can write an out-and-out inspirational book on Dharavi saying, okay, everything is positive. That's not a true picture either. So we tried to give a representation, like in entrepreneurship, for example, there are 6 or 7 major industries in Dharavi. There's leather, there is textiles, there is pottery, there is food. So we took a few people from there, each one just representing that, okay, there are many others like this, but here's somebody whose story was particularly inspiring. And yeah, the social aspect is also important. I think many times when you go to Dharavi, you might feel that nothing has changed, or everything is horrible, everything is bad. But people who live there say that, you know, there's been so much of change that they've seen over the last 10 or 20 years. Some of it is infrastructural change. I mean, today they have electricity, they have water, they have, more than anything, they have a lot of awareness of their rights, you know, those kind of things. So that's why we, again, try to tell the stories of change going on there through human beings. I mean, my formula, I guess, is always to add a human element to whatever, you know, project I undertake.
So, you know, if you were to, I mean, I'm not drawing hard comparisons, but if I were to look at your first book, which is like really achievers, right, or even your second book, they're all achievers of some kind or the other. And here there are, some of them are fairly ordinary people, and perhaps what they've done is really to get out of the environment that they've been brought up in, and, you know, some of the challenges that they faced. So I think you've talked about one person, he's like a manager at California Pizza Kitchen, right, which is like, obviously like a fast food joint or whatever, but he has great ambitions. So I think one is that, I think the obvious question to me is that, you know, in your mind, when you were meeting them, did you find these stories as inspiring as, let's say, some of the big guys who set up large enterprises and, you know, become big and so on? I mean, or is it that Dharavi, this is all that Dharavi can produce?
No, some of the stories are genuinely inspiring. I could have included them in any other book of achievers also. I mean, I would go as far as to say that. But still, I felt there's a value to focusing on Dharavi. Now, somebody like, you know, the principal told us, why don't you focus on other slums? You know, they're actually worse off than Dharavi. And I've always found is if you choose a subject, you limit it a little bit, it works out better. I mean, I could have been visiting 100 slums and not getting into the detail of any of them, because I also think Dharavi is a case study in terms of, you know, its evolution. Like, you know, it's been there for more than 100 years, it's evolved to a certain stage, and there are a lot of plans and proposed solutions to Dharavi redevelopment. So we do talk about these things in the book also, and you know, I feel that if there can be people like Jameel Shah and like Mustaqim in Dharavi, why can't they be there in other slums or in other parts of India? I mean, you know, we have so many places where people are expecting government to come and give help. कि नहीं हमारे पास कुछ नहीं है, somebody should come help us, give us some you know, financial assistance or give us work to do. I mean, if the spirit of entrepreneurship could be kindled in other communities, especially among young people, because see, today everyone's getting the education. How many of them are going to get jobs? Government jobs? Not likely. Private sector jobs, how many will get? I mean, they're all fighting for the same number of jobs, but if we can kindle some entrepreneurial spirit in them, I mean, that would be, you know, kind of maybe another kind of solution which could be implemented.
So some of the people that you've profiled are actually trying to solve the problems in Dharavi itself. I mean, some are entrepreneurs who have done well and, you know, in their own ways, but some are actually trying to fix the problem, which is Dharavi itself, right? There's someone who's fixing a water problem, an education problem, and so on, a health problem with acupuncture. So what's the, you know, when you go away after a year of research, what do you go away with? Because as I see it, it seems to be a mixed bag, right? It's spawning all this energy, and there's entrepreneurship, there's optimism, and yet on the other hand, the same people, I mean, you're actually writing about people who are solving problems which clearly the government or the civic authorities or whatever are unable to solve, including water. Right? So what's the, I mean, this is really my last question before I throw it up. So what's the final view? I mean, if, you know, having spent 1 year, come out, written a book, looking back, what's the consensus or?
I think the next step for people in Dharavi would be to actually be completely involved in this whole redevelopment process. Right now it's being mainly maybe it's being designed more for the benefit of people who are builders, people who are politicians, and they're looking at it just as a piece of land. But it'll never be successful unless the people there whose needs, you know, are to live there and to work there are not taken into account. Mostly the redevelopment is focused on providing some kind of free housing to them, but it doesn't take into account their livelihood. And they are going to resist it and they're going to make a mess of it. And that's why nothing has happened for last 8 years. But what we saw on ground is that, yeah, they are trying to, on their own, solve some problems like creating common toilets. You know, one community will build a toilet and then all the families will contribute 30 rupees a month to, you know, use it. So they are capable of self-governance also. So far they've focused mainly on, you know, their own economic growth and well-being. For many it is still a survival issue. Some who have done better and well, they need to probably get together, give back to the community. Something as simple as cleanliness, I really don't know why we are all depending on BMC to do it. Actually, even we ourselves. I mean, people have asked this question that if Dharavi is so entrepreneurial, then why don't they even solve their own problem which exists? But the fact is, even you and me, I mean, if there's garbage outside my building society, I don't do anything about it. I'm in a hurry to come here and do my event and go back and, you know, have my dinner. And so we've all neglected this and, you know, maybe for them, they need to get involved, and I'm sure they can do it, as all of us could do it, but maybe they could set an example even in this field, because, I mean, the irony is that the entire Bombay recycling industry is in Dharavi. But there's so much of rubbish lying around there, outside people's factories, on roads. I don't think any van goes there at all for collection. So maybe that kind of awareness building has to be there, wherein people also take a little bit of governance issues into their own hands. And I really don't see that that entire place is going to get wiped out and turned into Shanghai or New York or whatever. It's not going to happen like that. It has something unique and beautiful which should be preserved, but yes, they do need to get better facilities, better infrastructure, some public amenities. There are no playgrounds there are no open spaces. And I think these are things which should be addressed, and I hope that these same people who've created this, I think what they call various estimates place some $650 million to $1,000 million of, you know, revenues which come out of Dharavi, and it's many factories and workshops. The next step would be to really create a better Dharavi for the future, because everybody is looking for a better future for their children, you know. And next generation may not be so patient and so hardworking, you know. They may want more and they may demand more. They may stand on the streets tomorrow and, you know, demand it. And then you see our whole city can come to a standstill if everybody who's deprived like this decides that I need a better
And I think the other thing
life.
is that they also need, I mean, the sense of identity, right? I think one of the things you pointed out in your book is that when people apply for loans, the reason they don't get it is because they say Dharavi as the address, or they now say Mahim East, so that, you know.
Yeah, it's changing very slowly. There are now State Bank of India and some other, FINO and some other organizations, they have microfinance branches in Dharavi, but on the whole, there is still a lot of stigma of Dharavi being a slum and being a, maybe, you know, people who are not, you know, seen in this light, that, okay, they are contributors to society and not just occupying a piece of land illegally.
Great. Okay, questions?
Want to play the film?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the film, yeah.
We're showing a film and then we'll, this thing here.
Baba yetu yetu liye mbinguni yetu yetu amina. Baba yetu yetu liye kunjina lako litukuzwe. tunachohitaji utusamehe makosa yetu, hey! Kama nasi tunavyowasamehe wale tukosea, usitute katika majaribu, lakini utuokoe na yule milele na milele. Tunachohitaji utusamehe makosa yetu, hey! Kama nasi tunavyowasamehe waliokutukosea, usitute katika majaribu, lakini utuokoe na yule si mwovu milele.
And so the first question is, how did the subjects in your book take the initiative to branch out? How did they know what was needed and what would work? And so how did they contact the businessmen outside and tell their locality where they're located in, and how did they accept them? And how did they pick up this craft and create a training laboratory, a training center? Thank you.
Yeah, I would advise you to read the book, and then you can email me because the email ID is given and I could answer further questions.
But what's the, I mean, I think the fundamental question is how did they choose the craft that they did? I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I
in
think
some of the cases that
that's true. I mean, I would just say that, you know, what happened was around, 80 to 100 years ago, this place was actually not considered part of Bombay, Dharavi. Bombay city limits ended at Mahim. It was considered some kind of, outside Bombay. And secondly, it was actually a swampland. And so no civilized person was interested in settling down there. It wasn't even seen as a land. So people came from all over India. People from Saurashtra came to Bombay because there was a drought in Saurashtra, so they came here. And they settled there because there was a lot of open space. And they actually even physically dumped mud, dirt and all, made it a proper living place. Like that, people came from Tamil Nadu who had, who were from the leather trade. And again, leather was something which you don't do tanning and leather work in the residential localities or in the main city because, it's not considered to be, it's that kind of an industry which you don't normally, it's just not done. So that's why, again, so they were really outcasts, They were also people maybe from lower castes, and they had skills with their own hands and they had to survive. So they started doing all the things that they knew to do, and they brought in people from their own villages to help them and to come here and, increase that trade. So that's really how it happened.
Yes.
My name is Ratanlal Purohit. I'm a consumer activist. And I wonder, because when you make a statement here that this is a different slum, it's a slum where the persons come for work and not go out. It is a different slum and it is very important factory for the persons of Bombay. And if it is destroyed, I wonder whether the Bombay city, it will become certainly very, very difficult to get. Even your sofa set in your house comes from Dharavi. If even this bag, which costs only 100 rupees, comes from Dharavi. So when you separate this entrepreneurship of this side by making it a Shanghai or a concrete jungle or something, I think you are destroying the whole.
That's true. That's what we have said in the book. But then we do feel that, we can't let Dharavi remain as is also. I mean, there have to be civic amenities. There has to be, we can't have two cities, in Bombay, like one. In fact, people from Dharavi and, rest of Bombay, or people from slums and rest of Bombay who live in high-rise, I mean, we have to have one city, possibly taking into account entrepreneurship, but also giving them their due also.
Actually, why don't you combine both the things in the redevelopment plan?
But I am not a politician, bureaucrat or Prime Minister of India. I can only hope that people like that, they read such books and they understand that this is the situation, that's all I can hope.
My name is Dr. Rajesh. I would like to ask you, what is your prescription to the Dharavi to move on with the 21st century? To move on with the 21st century, what is your prescription to the Dharavi? Whether it should remain as it is with all these positives and negatives, or it should move on with the 21st century?
No, I think actually all of the citizens of the city, we should actually now, we should ask for a city that we deserve, We don't have that today. Even though you and me may be living a little better, but actually almost half of Bombay is also vertical slum. We don't have, the kind of beauty or the kind of infrastructure that a city of our stature should be having. Everything is actually being developed by private builders for their personal benefit, in the sense that even when Parel was to be redeveloped, Lower Parel, the original plan, there was supposed to be some sectors, 1/3 for the mill workers, 1/3 for public spaces, and 1/3 for commercial use. But that never happened. Why didn't it happen? And why didn't we demand it? I mean, why didn't we come on the street and ask for it? Today we just have hundreds of mill compound with some, like malls and residential buildings and offices. But we don't have a central park. I mean, whatever was created by Britishers. In Oval Maidan is the only small thing that we have. But we are too busy and too, we are not asking for it. And now when other people also are asking in Delhi, this time we are not concerned about it. Even, I myself would also admit that I am not involved. Azad Maidan mein hum log nahi, hum yahan par hain. So, I really don't know. I mean, it's a very big question, can't be answered in a line.
So I think this is what I was trying to ask her earlier as well. So when you leave Dharavi and when she wrote the book, what is the sense? What do you want them to be? Do you leave them, let them be as is and whatever, or do you move on to the 21st century, whether physically or, whether obviously I think...
all terms, not in...
Yeah, I think what this gentleman is also suggesting is the same thing. If you take that out of this, everything goes. A source of entrepreneurship.
See, the source of pride and purpose is there because today people know Dharavi is, there is a dignity in working for yourself. And, the fact that if you're working for yourself, there's always a hope that you have some, with your own efforts, you can grow something further. And many people have moved out of Dharavi also, incidentally. A lot of people have come and moved out. But even today, for those who come from outside, it's a place to go and, start their life. They can learn something. And many times now they, maybe resettle in other places. But it's the kind of a culture there which is not present in other places. But how to preserve that culture and still move into the 21st century, I don't know the answer to that.
Basically, you have shown a lot of children, small children, smiling children in your this presentation. So what is their future in Dharavi?
I think there are two possibilities. One is that they take the current, whatever base has been built to the next level, as happens in almost all the family businesses in India. Once the children join it, either they want to be part of it or they feel that no, we can't do anything here, we want to do something bigger. So I am guessing that some of them, of course, would like to move outside because they don't think that this place is going to change. But those people are very emotionally attached also. There are a lot of people who, maybe could move elsewhere, but they still feel this is the place that they belong to. So those people are the ones, who I wish, and I think that they will, be involved in the change factor which is required.
You see, most of the slums were formed by people occupying all these vacant spaces. Now in your talk you said that they are redeveloping Dharavi and they are going to make a playground, that means some open space. So do you think that open space will remain an open space?
Good, yeah. Are you answering that? Or? No. Okay.
I think it would, because every community sees the value of open spaces also. I mean, it's for the community to police its own assets. So I think it would be an asset for them.
Hello, Govind and Rashmi. Hi, this is Pushpa. I wanted to say, Govind, you said that in the 21st century you expect better housings. I wanted to say you're being very romantic. Can I just share a little input over here?
I said that? No, I'm not sure.
You just said that sometime earlier.
I think I was repeating what this gentleman asked.
Okay.
The question. Yeah.
Okay, but I was just saying you're being very romantic because I have something very important to share, which just hit me very hard. You said that in Dharavi there are 57,000 families. May I inform every member in this meeting that there is a place called Lalubhai Compound in Mankad, built just 2 years back by Niranjan Hiranandani and Akriti Builders, which is Hafiz contractor, which has a very huge, beautiful facade, but it houses 65,000 families, 65. This is 57. And this is a vertical building with no sunshine. All of them having 300 square feet. Children have been born in this place, and there is an abattoir right next door. There is a stink throughout. Only for 15 minutes they get water, the whole 65,000 complex. And there are people who have visited this place and have written a report on this. And when I brought it up, Niranjan took the point is, how can in today's day, an educated builder who is taking the land in the 21st century, can you imagine in the daytime there is no sunshine over there, and they have deliberately built it like that so that they don't get sunshine. So you can imagine what we are building under what kind of, in psychology, it's common that without sunshine your mind gets completely warped. You are nurturing terrorists over there. And what you're saying for Dharavi is paradise compared to what I heard and saw for Lalubhai Compound in Mankad. So anybody check it out and do something, because it's a horrific story to know.
What's your point? You're saying vis-a-vis
The point
Dharavi?
I'm saying is Dharavi is ancient and old and spread out. Here there's a vertical, worse than slum, recently 2 years back built structure by educated and rich architects like Hafiz contractor and Niranjan Hiranandani, who are being touted as the architects and people to follow.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, sorry.
You have focused your book to Dharavi, but as you said, there are 5 other bigger slums in Mumbai than Dharavi, and the rate at which we are seeing the urbanization in India in next 20 years, like 26% more Indians are going to come into city. Most of them will live in slums if nothing changes as this. So the model that you have suggested for Dharavi, like it's not just alternative housing, but livelihood of that own. Does that apply to Dharavi or slums as an exception, existing slums as an exception, or this could be the model for future urbanization in which most of the people will be living these unorganized settlements? What do you think about it?
Children, my voice is quite loud. You see, is there any school or balwadi or something for the children there? Because 25 years ago when we used to have Maharashtra State Women's Council one school, that's why I'm asking, is it still there? Okay. Because there are so many children and they are quite well dressed, and I saw uniform also. one girl wearing. So they have schools and all. So up to what standard?
Yeah.
Like?
Yeah, I'll address your question first. I think it could be an alternate model. I'm not saying this is a solution for everybody, but if there is, you know, if this model has worked in Dharavi, why can't it work elsewhere? Why should people who have skills, you know, who have artistic skills or some kind of livelihood skills come here and only, you know, do menial jobs? Why should everyone be aspiring to only be a driver or a peon or a, you know, a maid servant? I mean, they have come from villages with, they are abandoning their traditional crafts and coming here. The one thing is that, yeah, I mean, when you're in a hub like Dharavi, you get a market. Maybe there are people in villages, if they were to do the same thing, they don't have access to market. So, of course, we must build rural livelihood also, but in existing urban slums, if we can do something like this, maybe, I mean, that is one issue. And we don't actually have such models elsewhere either. I mean, if you go to Mexico City, you go to Cape Town, you go to Nairobi, there are very large slums, in Karachi also. But this model is kind of unique to Dharavi. And again, why it happened, we don't know. I mean, I always say that there is only one Silicon Valley in the world. Why it happened, we again don't know. You know, a lot of things came together and accidentally gave birth to this. So we could definitely try, at least I think for young people especially. People who are very much older are set in their ways. As far as you were asking about children and schools, there are a lot of schools in Dharavi, but one of the issues is the children you saw there, they're from Dharavi Municipal Transit Camp School. It's run by Municipal Corporation. It has a good building, Pakka building, but teachers are lacking. So there are some teachers who have gone from this organization called Teach for India. 7 of them are teaching there. And with nothing, there is no, you know, they don't even have desk, you know, they just have small chairs. They don't have anything. But, you know, with their kind of dedication that they have put in, they've really made a difference to the children. But this school, it ends at 8th standard because as per our constitution, we only have to provide schooling till 14 years of age. So after 8th standard, you have to shift to another school. So many children don't shift to another school, and especially girls may or may not be shifted to another school because this is relatively, you know, it's free. But many of the parents are sending the children to private schools, convent schools. They are willing to pay 500 rupees a month to get a better education. So there is a lot of awareness of education, and there are some foundations also running school, like Art of Living Foundation has a school there, and others also are running doorstep school and so on.
Okay. Yeah, I just come to you.
I just wanted to ask you, you've done these different kind of groups in each of your books, which are kind of different from each. Each book is different community types. What do you see as a common thread in all, and what do you see as the differences in these different communities?
I think the common thread is people who can imagine something more than what exists today. Majority of people are just bogged down by the reality that this is a reality. How can I do anything beyond this? A person who's an entrepreneur, he can imagine a different world, a different, scenario which doesn't exist today. And he or she will work out a way to reach there. I mean, that way is always unknown, it's unstructured, it's full of pitfalls, struggle, but they do it. So maybe the people in Dharavi there, you know, by turnover and so on, they may not match people who are there in my previous books. But when you see that, you know, they created something out of nothing, that's what's the common factor. And obviously, the common qualities, I would say, are the same, which exists across entrepreneurs. You know, the event in Dharavi, where we will try to connect organizations which can help skill building and employability and, entrepreneurial skills for youth. So we are trying to connect maybe certain organizations and, I think young people still lack in some way in terms of confidence, in terms of many kind of exposure which we all take for granted. So I think my role is always to be a mediator or to be a connector of people. I don't see myself taking an active role for Dharavi or for any other project I undertake in the long term.
So are you a changed person? I think that was the last question. So yes or no?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it has changed me, yes.
She explained it in the beginning about her maid, 25 years, she has not visited.
Okay, I think, thank you very much. We've run out of time completely. Thank you so
Hi.
much. Yeah, I'll hand it back to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. My name's Hannah. I'm a student at Wellesley College in the United States, and I'm interning at ORF for the summer. So I'd just like to offer a vote of thanks before the evening is over. So ORF would like to thank Westland, Rashmi, and Govind Etiraj and the audience for joining us and for providing us with a lovely discussion. We'd like to announce our talk on Saturday, August 4th by Dr. Amitava Mukherjee on community-based responses to food insecurity and solutions for Asia. It'll take place here at 5 p.m. So we look forward to your presence. Thank you.
They have a real sense of purpose and passion, and they work for it and they make it happen.
Good evening. First, I like to congratulate Rashmi for actually reaching our lives. You started with IIM, slowly you graduated to connecting dots, and then a dream and now these people. So you actually, if I see you have put the journey, so there is a listening created for you. And that's why I'm ready to even consider Dharavi as a point to read. So I really want to thank you for this bold initiative. It takes a lot of things in a person to go visit their stay for 9 months and create something which could impact the world out there. So I really want to thank you, and I would request everybody to applaud Rashmi for her bold step.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I myself am an inventor with more than 50 patents, and most of my patents impact the bottom of the pyramid. I have few very specific products which could impact the people in Dharavi. I have made a water trolley which could be dragged 40 liters with just 6 kgs of load. I have come out with a simple mobile camera, and housekeeping can be done, or all complaint management or e-governance can be done by a mobile camera. And it's nothing. And I did this along with IIT students, and all the newspaper are carrying the articles about. And I have many such patents. My question to you is, the new world which is arising, where education on mobile, the digital divide is decreasing and things like that. And there is so much social media available. Like an impact of Slumdog Millennium gave a rise to lot many things to think about them. What do you really foresee in years to come in the redevelopment or the growth of personal people's aspirations through use of new technology? Thank you.
Well,
I think you're answering the.
Yeah. Well, I must congratulate you for the many patents and innovations, and I would just hope for a future where all these, there are a lot of good work happening in laboratories or in institutions, and there are a lot of people out there who need it, but there is nobody taking it to them. And maybe sometimes it's not the role of the inventor to do it, because he or she is busy inventing and researching, and that's not his or her forte. But we need entrepreneurs who can make it happen, who can take this and make it happen. It's not going to be that they come to you or you go to them, but some other person sees a potential and takes it to them. And there are a couple of people in the book like that whom we've talked about, but there should be many more. I mean, I would want that students of management schools, some of them should take up this challenge. I mean, we have the biggest market for bottom of the pyramid goods, and they're not only shampoo sachets. Why should only shampoo sachets be marketed by our, brightest people? So that would be my hope, that we have a whole army of people who are these social entrepreneurs, because I don't really see much happening from government side. And also people who are originally from a place like Dharavi decide to give back and, take up that challenge. That's what I see.
I think this gentleman had a question. One second.
Did you consider any legal and political issues? See, in my opinion, the Slums Act of Maharashtra, it was enacted in 1971.
Yeah.
There is no, in the title, that word prevention. The Act says Maharashtra Slums Clearance, Improvement, Rehabilitation Act 1971. That prevention word there, it is not there in the title itself. So even after this, maybe the Dharavi may be the oldest slum. So after that also government did not learn anything, and the government allowed all these things, slums, to proliferate all over Mumbai. In fact, basically Mumbai is now, people in a slang, this thing they say it is slumbai. More than this thing, buildings, people are staying in slums. So I don't know, this is my rather contribution instead of this thing. So did you consider any, approached any these things, politicians about this? In fact, they are exploiting.
We did do a lot of research. We went
people.
To the, Nirmala Niketan, TISS library. We read up all the available material. But you see, by talking about what has happened in the past, what has gone wrong, I didn't seem to fit with the theme of the book. We have briefly mentioned about it. And if you see the SRA scheme, Slum Rehabilitation Authority schemes, there are about large number of buildings which you can see on periphery of Dharavi which have got rehabilitated. And as ma'am was, Pushpa was mentioning, they're actually, they haven't served the purpose because they haven't been built, they've been built in a very cut-rate manner. They are not built in a civilized manner which, can be maintained and can be of use. The lifts don't work, the water doesn't, reach people, the stairs are crumbling. So I think the problem is that the people who control the land and who control these things, they are not thinking of, how to build a better and more beautiful city. I really don't know where they're going to go with all their, ill-gotten wealth, because ultimately all of us have to, pass on to the next dimension. We can't take it with us. So I really don't know what is the incentive to keep on and on fleecing the sort of city and the residents of the city and not providing what people deserve. But you made an important point, but this is not a book which, wanted to cover that. We did try to meet some politicians, but I think they were afraid of what questions we might ask, so we never got the interview with the MLA of Dharavi. We tried very hard, but she didn't want to meet us.
No, because 4 years back, when I noticed the deficiency in the Act, I brought it to the attention of Maharashtra government. They replied me saying that, okay, we are amending that and we'll be adding the prevention word, but so far nothing has been done.
Interesting point. You were saying something? Yeah.
Why do none of your illustrations have captions in the book?
We just didn't, we did have this question, did come up. The person who designed the book and we both felt that, it's kind of almost self-explanatory and we don't want to give captions. I mean, it was just a design or it was just a personal choice. I mean, you're reading the book and the pictures are right in the middle of it. And so we just want to give you a...
Yes, you're talking about several individuals and some of the pictures are there. Which individual, except for that recent track, was very easily identified.
Well, generally, the picture of the person who's been talked about is on the first page of every book, and the other pictures are general pictures, which may be also of Dharavi or, I mean, we took a little non-traditional approach. Somebody asked why you don't have a table of contents. We didn't feel we wanted that. I mean, I don't have an answer to these questions, but we didn't do it as a traditional book. Actually, normally books aren't even published like this. They either have only pictures and they're like a coffee table book, or they have only words, or even a book which has pictures will have it in the middle in 16 pages. They'll put the pictures all together. And we wanted a book which was like a seamless book which had the pictures and words together. And yeah, but I don't know. We thought about it and it seemed to disturb the flow of the book to my mind. It may be wrong. Okay, I'll keep it in mind.
My suggestion is that why doesn't town planning, I mean, what did town planning have, what was Dharavi, the land over there planned for, and then what do they have in mind, and why don't we all, go to the town planning of Bombay and work together with them? I mean, instead of everyone having a different suggestion, opinion, this, but they are the authorities, you know, town.
Well, you know, there is a citizens group which was formed around 4 years ago, which consists of some architects, some social activists, social workers, residents of Dharavi, to suggest an alternate plan to this mega redevelopment, Shanghai redevelopment, which anyways has been now scrapped pretty much. But you know, in 1 year since this book was, or how many months, I mean, there's no change. Every day some sector 5 was to be redeveloped. So I thought maybe now it's going to happen. But I have not heard or seen anything. And some of the people there, they have built multiples, many of them. The sign of progress in Dharavi is that you have one ladder and then you have 4 stories, you know, one by one you build more stories on your, and people are busy building. So we asked them, why are you doing it like this? You're spending 2 lakhs to make the next mala and next mala. They said, nahi, kuch nahi hoga, and hoga to dekhenge, abhi to kuch nahi ho raha hai. You know, they don't believe it. And I also looking at, you know, the pace, I don't think it's happening anytime soon.
Madam, from your book and this talk that we have had here, the entrepreneurial skills of these persons there in Dharavi can be I don't know, we can utilize it in a bunker Roy type of experiment that Telonia is I got, and when they can give back to the society as how these persons they can be better IIM than IIM Ahmedabad to teach the persons as to how to have these enterprising skills utilized for the society. I think your next book should be looking into these aspects and how this can be given back. I mean, instead of these persons, smiling kids going to IIM Ahmedabad and moving out of Dharavi, I think Dharavi should become some sort of a college by itself, like Telonia experiments of Bunker Roy.
Okay, yeah.
Sure. I think Observer Research Foundation should take up the job of now taking the book the next level, because for me, I mean, I think said what I wanted to say on this subject, and I would maybe not be taking it to the next level. And maybe there are more serious researchers. I admit very freely I'm not a serious researcher, policy maker, you know, but only my role was to bring this to larger audience. Maybe because people, you know, generally books on such a subject are read by very select few people who are interested in it, but maybe I've tried to reach it out to those who are general people, you know, who I address.
Yeah, first a confession that I have not read your book. I'll go and read it. Other book I have read it. Second, a question is in terms of connect of outside Dharavi in Mumbai. How much did you see? Because I know some organizations like Sneha doing a good job. I don't know whether you have covered any books.
We have covered Sneha.
The question is, did you see a connect which was less happening, increasing between Dharavi and Mumbai outside Dharavi? That's the first. Let me just finish the question. Second, I would read the book, but you also said there are a number of things which you have achieved in 9 months, which is outside the book, which could be a good background for people like me who are interested to do something. So are you open to share at any point of time? Because it might not be worthwhile for a book, but it might be worthwhile for doing some pieces of work in Dharavi, which you just said. So, and third, maybe a personal question, are you a changed person after visiting Dharavi, and what are you doing about it?
Okay. I'm sorry, I've lost track of the first question.
First question was connect between
I would say Dharavi is very self-sufficient. Large number of people living there actually don't come to Bombay. They say Bombay jana hai, you know, like they don't consider it as, I mean, they do know they're part of Bombay, but their whole life, everything they need and do and work, like I have to maybe commute to go out for various reasons, but for them it's a very self-sufficient community. But of course the amount of goods and services they're supplying to us is very large. I mean, if you see the recycling operations there, although not in very, I would say, proper conditions, I mean, much has to be done for that, but they are taking care of all our kachara. And besides that, they're impacting in many different ways. As he mentioned, there was a person who wrote in to me saying that after reading the book, I realized that all the chapatis in our canteen are coming from Dharavi every day. This is a very large company based in New Bombay, which has, I don't know how many employees. They take 20,000 chapatis a day, and they all come from Dharavi. So it's just that there's no stamp, saying made in Dharavi on most of the goods and services. So maybe it would be good if they could get together, have some kind of federation, and maybe have a brand name called Dharavi, a trademark which is registered. That could be a great thing.
More on a social initiative taken by Mumbai in Dharavi. Do you find any cases?
No, of course, that's what half the book is about, all that, about how many people from outside, not only from India, but from all over the world have been attracted to Dharavi. I mean, really, if one has to live in a slum, I think the kind of opportunities you get in Dharavi are huge. I mean, so many NGOs are focused there, many international celebrities also visit Dharavi and do something. I mean, there is hip-hop dancers who come from US and some musicians come from Brazil, and they'll do stuff with the children of Dharavi because of NGOs working there. Or because of Sneha, they may get opportunities which people in other slums are not getting. So, I mean, that is happening definitely. We don't hear much about it, but... And surely you can be in touch with me if you would like me to connect you to some of these people. But in the book, at the end, we have given contact details of all the people who are, working there, whom we have featured in the book. But if I can help you beyond that.
Having spent 9 months, having gone through the experience, are you willing to be an anchor in terms of various people who want to do work in?
No, I mean, to be honest, I'm not a social worker or social activist. We are planning to hold one